All right, loves. It's time to get real about boundaries. Now, those of you who have followed me for any amount of time know this is a topic very near and dear to my heart. I believe a sacred and authentic boundaries practice is the very core of creating the life and world we most desire, and that is most aligned with our highest good as individuals and as a collective. So, more to come on that in other videos around the theme of boundaries this week. However, I want to start by offering the basic. So years ago, when I started doing groups around boundaries, and specifically I started doing groups around boundaries and women, because we have a certain cultural learning around rooting inward versus orienting based on the outside world. And so I came up with a 3-part boundaries practice, which I've called the anatomy of a boundary. Because most people I know think of boundaries as the pushback. They think about it initially as a reactive practice. Somebody says this, I push back. Somebody wants this, I say no. Now, that is a part of boundaries practice, honoring our needs in those necessarily reactive situations. However, I view a more holistic and empowering boundaries practice often as much more proactive. And so these 3 parts of the anatomy of a boundary reflect that. And one part is drawing the line. You know, it's kind of like when you're bowling and you cross the line, it's like, that is part of it, but there are these other very necessary parts. So here we go. Part 1, the one that many people like to try and overlook, which is cultivating varied and diverse practices that help us tune inward. We are all taught different programming and patterning around who we should be in the world, what we should like, what we should say. We make assumptions about what other people need from us without checking them out. It's this very, again, reactive way of being in the world, rather than cultivating a practice of asking ourselves curiously and compassionately, who am I? What do I want? What do I need? And what is aligned with my values? So getting really curious about what matters most in your own life and in your own body, as well as in the world. And that is the foundation for doing the rest of the work of boundaries. Step 2 is saying or doing the thing. So the second part is finding very clear, but also often very loving ways of stating a boundary. I like the sandwich approach often, especially when it's a really uncomfortable boundary to set, which is something that you can appreciate or affirm, the boundary, and then an assumption of support. So it might sound like, I really appreciate that you want to spend time with me. I actually need some downtime to regroup and center. I need to be by myself. Thank you so much for understanding. So it's in a way letting the other person save face and assuming that they're a decent human being who just asks for something that you're not willing or able to give, rather than that reactive push, which often makes people bring up a reaction or a response of feeling judged or shamed. Now, again, sometimes a strong reaction is necessary, but we're talking about a more proactive approach. The third, and this is one that people don't often talk about, and that is giving it back. We're talking about energetic boundaries here. So let's say, I'm going to use that other really common and fairly easy to access example of, I need time to myself. I don't want to hang out, whether it's with my partner or a coworker or whatever. And then I see their puppy dog eyes. I see them kind of go, right? I can choose. I have choice in that moment. I can take that on and feel responsible for their emotional experience. That is theirs. Or I can very intentionally within myself have compassion and go, oh, they're disappointed, and let them have their disappointment lovingly. It's very different than being like, oh, have fun with that. It's like, oh, that's actually not mine. I'm actually not supposed to figure that out for them. And I trust them to be able to navigate discomfort in service of our relationship being clean. So boundaries are about investing in the integrity of a relationship more than investing in the needs of our ego to be seen a certain way by others. Integrity versus ego is what we're talking about. And hopefully those three steps, the three parts of a boundary practice, as I have practiced for years now, will help you start to uncover and unpack some ways that you can stand in a more rooted place as you navigate life.